Hi everyone, I'd like to do a shout out to our sponsor, Bako Diagnostics. Early detection is the single most important factor in improving patient outcomes. The Bako Diagnostics team recognizes how impactful a podiatric physician can be and remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing conditions of the lower extremity. Thanks to the unwavering support of their clients, Bako Diagnostics has been able to give back to the podiatric community for 16 years by providing podiatric educational resources and advocating for the position. Bako Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. If you have not yet had the opportunity to utilize Bako Diagnostics services, get started today by sending an email to corporatelations@bakoddiagnostics.com. The first 50 podiatry offices who request a starter kit will receive a Dean's Chat mug. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dean's Chat, where we discuss all things podiatric medicine. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Jensen. I'm the Dean at the Arizona College of Podiatric Medicine and the host for the Dean's Chat podcast. Once again, I'm with my co-host, Dr. Joanna Richey. Hi, Joe.
Hey, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Nice weekend. Weather's great in Phoenix this time of year. Life is good.
Weather is beautiful. Yep, this is the time of year we live for.
Absolutely. And our guest today was in Phoenix a couple weeks ago for the ACFAS meeting. I'd like to introduce Dr. Bela Pandit. Dr. Pandit, welcome to Dean's Chat.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, we've been looking forward to this. It's been on the calendar for a while, and I'm glad we could put it together. Dr. Pandit, if it's okay with you, let's go informal. First names, Bela, Joanna, and Jeff.
Got it. Got it right there. No problem.
All right. Well, let me give you a little more formal introduction. Dr. Pandit practices in the Chicagoland area. She was previously the chair of the Practice Management Committee at the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons. She has been the only podiatrist on the MACRA board for medicine. MACRA is a acronym for Medicare Access and Chip Resolution Act. And we can talk about that a little more later. You also are the owner of a medical spa. You work with a residency program and you oversee a clerkship. There's a lot of things we're going to talk about. You lecture nationally and internationally on practice management, billing and coding, dermatology. You're also a fellow podcast host, having hosted the ACFAS On Demand podcast. The two that I'm familiar with are more recently the one on work-life balance and one on protecting your assets. So we can talk about a little bit of that too. But I don't mind kicking it off here. We are already on the ACFAS theme. Let's talk about the Practice Management Committee. How'd you get involved with ACFAS and how'd that evolve?
So, it was about 10 years ago. One of the things I enjoy a lot is practice management and billing and coding. I want everyone I know to be successful. So I applied. I thought that was a perfect committee for me. And lo and behold, you're supposed to only be on for 3 years, but I was on for 10. So chaired it for 2. And during those 10 years, we made a lot of progress. We started up these podcasts. We are about to publish a book on how to start a practice because I think there's not a ton of great information out there in one accessible format. We've just grown a lot. And, in 10 years, practice management has changed, medicine has changed, and technology has changed. So all of that we incorporated into the committee. Unfortunately, after 10 years, I think I pushed the boundaries of the 3. Now I'm on the consumer ed committee, which is more the social media, the TikToking, things like that.
Speaking of changes in medicine over 10 years, social media has gone crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I think it's a fine line of doing too much versus too little. And you have to be known, but you don't want to make it where it looks like you're not working, where you're posting too much. So all in art that I think we're learning as we go.
That old adage, everything in moderation, kicks in.
Yes.
Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting experience, certainly in this world of social media. And, we just had the opportunity to meet with the students at the APMSA conference about social media. And I have really appreciated your take, Bella, as I've listened to some of the podcasts that you've done with the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons. In the realism that you bring. And I'm curious, you had just said something that I would love to kind of highlight, this idea of like when you're on social media all the time, you kind of have to wonder, like, what else are you doing? So how do you find that blend, or for especially maybe like advice for these younger generation surgeons that are coming up? What do you think is an appropriate amount of social media use? How do they navigate this new world that we live in?
Yeah. So, when especially with my students, I kind of start there. I'm like, I think it's really, really important to have a LinkedIn account when you're a student, like right away, because there's opportunities that people miss out on. You want to get your name out there. That being said, that's the professional side of social media. And I wouldn't post too much there unless it's business related. But everyone younger, they love Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff. You don't want to make yourself ever seem unprofessional. Relatable
Yeah.
is interesting. So if you have like a dog, people love like pet things, or you're out with your colleagues and having a dinner, people like that. But if you start getting too personal, talking about emotions all the time, it's almost too much. One thing I learned from talking to some social media gurus is, I guess where I'm at in my stage, they say one really good coveted post a week on a platform that you're comfortable with is excellent. It keeps people interested. It keeps you relevant, and people are anticipating to see more. But again, if you post, and there's of course people in every field that are posting 5, 6, 7 times a day, I think you lose your credibility. I don't know how you feel, Joe or Jeff, but I think you lose, like, you look like you're not working. So why should I believe you? Kind of thing.
I don't
And I
disagree
think
with that. Right. I mean, look at
I,
our kids. They're in high school or college. They're posting all
yeah,
the time. That's the time to do that.
Yeah.
and I love what go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
I would say what you were going to highlight about the professionalism part, and kind of looking through that lens of like, if I were to go back and read this a year from now or 2 years from now, am I going to be proud of whatever it is that I'm putting out there? And, I think there's something to be said for residency programs and fellowship programs. They'll post cases to kind of let the world know, hey, look, this is some of the stuff that we're doing. And I think that there's a lot of tact in the way that people are approaching that. And it's interesting to scroll through, and sometimes you'll see people just post like an x-ray and a statement, and sometimes the feedback, and if you read through some of the comments, people are like, give us some more information about the case, like, that looks like a great x-ray, can you share a little bit more, rather than just, humble brag moment. But like, it's interesting to me, and I have not personally been able to kind of cross that boundary yet of like putting, and they're always posted with permission, and I think it's okay for us all to have a different spin or take on how we handle or address our social media posts. So I like what you said about the professionalism part, and I like that also, one a week. I think that's like, I will disappear on social media, and I don't have a answer for why. It's just, insert life here. But I always feel this weird guilt, like I should be doing more. Oh, I should be on more. I should be commenting more. And then I just kind of, I don't know, I don't care enough to to like sit and harbor on it. But it is important. This is how our students are finding this information. It is how prospective students are getting introduced to things. So I appreciated your insight on that, being in both the social media committee for something like the American College of Foot and Ankle Surgeons, as well as just your own practice and the kinds of content that you put out for patients and patient engagement. So I didn't mean to I cut off, I think, Jeff and Bella on that one. So I'll throw the ball back to you guys.
No, I think it's a good case in point where I did a student lecture at the ACFAS conference just last week or so. And it was a 15-minute, and the person before me was running over. So they cut my time to 10 minutes. So I just finished it with like, hey, follow me on, my handle on Instagram. And I mean, they didn't even need me to spell it. It was like, I got 70 follows by just saying that, like,
Yeah.
that's the age difference where I would be like, wait, how do you exactly spell that?
Yeah.
So, so we do want to be relatable to the younger people and the younger generation. But also, teaching them kind of not the dangers, but just to be mindful of what you're posting. For me, I like to post things that are either interesting, something someone's not doing, a niche that I like presenting is like more aesthetic things. And then I could refer my patients to like, hey, go on my Instagram. There's a live video and back in whenever you can look at if you're thinking about the procedure.
I think that's super smart. You know, the thing about social media and when we do orientation with students, Bella, we always tell them that, you know, that over a course of 4 years, there's lots of stress in podiatry school, and you're going to want to send out that text, that flaming text or email, and you should put it away till the next morning, wake up and delete it, right? I think the same philosophy holds true for social media. LinkedIn is more professional. You're not going to see a lot of politics or leanings one way or another, or edgy things. But when you're on Instagram, I can see that totally, or TikTok, of course.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see how, again, this evolves as well, but it's exciting. And, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's also kind of free advertising, right? You don't have to pay for newspaper ads anymore or magazine stuff. You can, you know, post whatever you like on for free.
You know,
and to your point, patients can find you. They can easily see not just a service that you're providing, but clinical photos or videos, or gather reliable information. Because again, one of the other downsides to the internet is you can get lots of information, but is it good information? Is it quality information? And so I appreciated that point that you had said you can send your patients to that as a resource, as well as like, here are some tools that I have created that if you want more information on this particular topic, you can find it there. So
Absolutely.
sorry, Jeff. I might have a little
good.
delay, and I apologize if I'm jumping in on your.
No, you're fine. Hey, Bella, tell us about your medical spa. I'm interested.
So I love the whole world of aesthetics just because my patient population is like extreme. Either they're like really, really badly controlled diabetics, or they're people who just really care about the look of their feet. And it's something I was interested in. So in 2012, I had this empty space in the building that I'm at, and I built out this freestanding spa. And what I did with it was I had a laser for the fungal toenails already. And, you know, it's not covered by insurance, it's a cash service. So I'm like, let me put this in a beautiful new space where it just feels like luxurious. You can justify why you're paying cash for it, not using your insurance. And from there, I just started asking people, like, and they were telling me, well, what else does this laser do? Does it remove this mold? Does it, you know, do this infection? Does it lighten up the skin? And I sort of gathered what people wanted. And so the next thing I did was started like a area for medical pedicures, which are just completely sterile pedicures. Everything's autoclaved. We throw out everything, including like the brushes. We pour out the nail polish. It's like, it's the works, because those same people that were investing in the laser for their toenails are like, where should I get my nails done? And it's a real concern for people. I mean, sometimes as surgeons, and we're like, it's not that big of a deal. But like for some people, not having like a good looking foot is really embarrassing. They won't take off their sock in the office. They're like really upset about things. So it just kind of fed into my practice. And from there, we just got more gizmos and more things going on. So anything from like basically the skin, knee down, we can brighten, tighten, lighten, remove with, you know, lasers or treatments or peels and things like that. So it's been wonderful. Patients really appreciate it because they don't actually want to find somewhere else. They want something that a doctor has curated. I love it. It's like one of the best things I ever did. And it might go back to my whole love of art history, because I was just like the nerd and then who loves science and pre-med. And then I'm like, but no, I really love art history. And my mom and dad were like, yeah, are you going to make a living in that? I'm like, yeah. So they were like, no, you're not. So I got to blend that in a little bit.
Makes sense to me.
And Jeff's pointing at me because he can see. So I started in college as an fine art major and an art history minor. So absolutely, we can totally geek out on some art history at another time. But I when I was looking through your CV, that was one of the first things. And you went to Boston University, which is where Christy King also went, not for art, but. And I was curious. I'm like, oh, I wonder if you guys were there around the same time, and like, you know, just missing paths. I don't know, maybe you knew each other, but it's just such a small world sometimes when you realize how we're all so connected. What was it that got you interested in podiatry?
So I did a work study program in college at BU Medical Center, and I was placed with a man named Dr. Neil Ruderman, and he was one of the pioneers of linking diabetes with obesity. So all his research was the effects of obesity on diabetes. And I was looking at med school, I was looking what I was going to do, and he actually was like, you need to do podiatry, which is sometimes rare from an MD to say that, especially one that's like heavily into research. Good, nice guy, but very had that research mind. And he said, you will never be out of business. Diabetes is never going away. You will always have a job. It is good hours if you want it to be. And you can kind of tailor it. He's like, if I would look back, I would be highly interested in that. I'm like, okay. So I did my research and I'm like, I kind of love this. I mean, I loved the thought you're already a specialist kind of going in, which is great. And I loved it. And I kind of agreed with him, at that time, well, probably as long as we're here, and diabetes is not going away, and there's always going to be that population. So it was a great choice for me, and I went right after college. So
How
That's a
did you
great story.
how did you decide on the Shoal College?
so I'm from New Jersey, so it was either New York, Philly, and then I looked at the Chicago school, and I think I looked at the San Francisco school too. San Francisco is too far, and being a student, I'm like, I don't want to pay that airfare all the time. And then New York and Philly was just too close to home. I like, my parents would be showing up every day. I didn't want that either. As much as I love them, I just knew they'd be there all the time. So I fell in love with the campus in Chicago. It was downtown at the time, beautiful city. People are nice, food's good. I loved it. I mean, I had nothing but good times. So I was happy with my choice.
That makes sense. And what stimulated your interest in education? You lecture a lot. You're involved with the residency program, the clerkship. Have you always had an educational bent to you?
Definitely. I really like giving back if I can. I really think there's pockets in the education of us and a lot of sectors too, where it's nice to hear from a different perspective. Sometimes what we get taught in school is not what you get taught in a clinic. It's not what you get taught in the hospital. So when I work with the fourth years, they spend a month with me and they kind of live a life in the office. This is what private practice looks like. These are the things you can expect. These are the things that walk in the door on the regular, but anything can walk in the door, which is very different than the mindset of like a residency where it's like a lot of surgery. It's not necessarily a lot of follow through with some of the surgeries. So, I like being able to teach, like there's lots of different ways we can tackle this profession and there's no one way to go. But after residency, most likely a lot of people are not going to live that same exact lifestyle. So we need to see what else is out there. So I enjoy teaching them. I enjoy the questions. And I like learning from them too. I like to keep up with, hey, what are you getting taught at school? Was there something out there that you guys are doing research on? So keeps me fresh too.
Yeah, I always found it's fourth year students kept me on my toes because they're smart as a whip, but they just don't have the experience. So they're full of questions. And being a clerkship director back in the day in Colorado, I just loved working with the fourth years.
Yeah, they're so fun and they're so eager. And they always have they have an open mind, but a lot of them like, I really want to do this. I'm like, you know what? Go through residency, see what you like, so it's kind of nice, but they're so eager. It's really fun.
Absolutely, Joe.
Yeah, and I also, and this might have been in one of the podcasts, like one of the ones that Jeff had mentioned on work-life balance, alignment, harmony, whatever we're calling it these days, that it's okay for things to change. Like you can start out in one, and that's also one of the, really nice opportunities is you have the flexibility to change your practice setting, your practice type, your interests can evolve over time. And one of the myths that I think we commonly hear is like, oh, but it's such a narrow specialty, right? Because it's just foot and ankle. And it's like, actually, it's incredibly diverse in terms of the different opportunities. It's one anatomic region of the body, but there's actually a ton of opportunity. And there's opportunities to switch and change throughout. And it's not like you have to go all the way back through a whole nother residency program or something to take on new skills or learn new treatment modalities, or even, new surgical procedures. So as you've kind of gone through your career, Bella, what have been some of the ways that you continue your own process? You had talked about kind of interest in this area of like, maybe I'll do something like a medical spa. How do you start to broaden your universe when you're looking like, well, I might want to do this new technique that I read about? Where do you go for information?
That's a great question, Joe. So I think, like you said, over time, I think our day-to-day doesn't change. If your job doesn't change and the people don't change, we're naturally inquisitive minds. I mean, we went through school and we're doctors. So you want to learn something new. I think conferences have been great for me, but sometimes it's more of a mentorship. Like I will find someone that's doing maybe something I'm interested in and ask about it, maybe incorporate some of those things, maybe not the whole thing. I like, I don't mind journal articles. I read some of the new stuff that's coming out and seeing if that could be worked into my practice. But one of the best things is, I think, is anything that's hands-on. Yes, some of these things cost money to like pay for a conference or some kind of teaching class. But when you're hands-on, you can be like, can I do this? Is this something that I feel comfortable incorporating? And sometimes you love it and sometimes you don't. You're like, I just don't feel comfortable with this. And maybe you didn't waste money, but you learned some kind of new technique. But definitely seeking out more interesting courses and definitely people who are doing interesting things, for me, has been really good.
I love that.
Oh, that is great. Bella, I have another question for you. You don't hear it from students as much, or even residents, but young practitioners will often come up to me at a meeting and they'll say, how do I get on a speakers bureau? How do I work with this wound care product or Bako Diagnostics, for example? You're also a speaker for Athena Health or Orthodermatologics. What is your recommendations for young practitioners to kind of get a foot in the door where they're giving talks, maybe being invited to give talks?
That's also a great question. I think one thing that we can't stop doing, whatever your personality is, introvert, extrovert, whatever you claim you are, you can't stop networking in our field. Most of the speaking opportunities I've got is because I spoke up. I went to a dinner or a lecture series or something, and I spoke up. I raised my hand or I talked to whoever was hosting it afterwards. I never turn down a good invitation from someone that wants to meet. If we're at the same conference and someone finds me on LinkedIn, like, hey, I noticed you're speaking here. Do you want to meet up? I never say no. I think it's just making your voice known. And if you have something interesting to say it, because companies particularly, they want our feedback. I mean, most people on these companies aren't physicians. They aren't doing what we do every day. And they want a fresh perspective, whatever it may be, because that's the way to like kind of just get your name out there. And from there, just be true to yourself, speak what you think, speak what your opinion in a nice way, of course. And then people are always like, hey, can you talk about this? Or I'd love to hear more about this. But it's really the networking. You just can't stop the networking, even if it's just a friendly hello at a conference. Our world is too small. So I just, they always say don't burn bridges, right? In school, like don't burn any bridges because you'll see these people again. You do. And so, I just be out there. Just, you don't have to be loud, but you can be friendly.
It's interesting because it seems to be there a happy medium, if you will, between social media and in-person networking, because you can't do one or the other nowadays. You need a little bit of everything. And so I'm with you on that. So usually when a student or a young doc asks me about speaking engagements, I often tell them, what do you like to do? What products do you like to use? Where are you getting good patient outcomes? Because that will lead you down a path to highlighting your expertise and your outcomes that will give you speaking opportunities. So but you can't be shy, like you said, and you got to say yes.
You got to say yes. Exactly. And yeah, especially if you have a good, strong viewpoint, make it be known. It's interesting to people.
Absolutely. Joe, you found the same, I guess. How?
Yeah, and you know what I also really like that you said, Bella, is you have to speak up. It's so easy to hold our opinions to ourselves, or oh well, I'm going to let so and so say it, or I'm going to have this, poke somebody, hey, you should say this, right? But it is important that if you want your voice heard, you have to speak up and say it, because no one will say what you have to say the way that you're going to say it. And we each bring something unique and wonderful to the profession. But if we don't share that with the world, then again, it's really only hurting ourselves, our patients, and future opportunities for other people to learn from us. So I appreciated the way that you kind of voiced that. So
Thank you. Thank you. But yeah, it's been good. I do love trying to share that knowledge like publicly too. It's always, it's fulfilling for me.
I think
That's
it's also
great.
really easy to sometimes feel like what we have, well, oh, what I have to say, isn't going to be said as well or done as well as if so and so were to do it, or oh, I'm not, who am I to do these things? But again, that one of the ways that I have kind of been following a little bit of your career was listening to you speak on podcasts and be like, oh, I really like the way she explained that, or like, what, that really resonates with me, the way that you said, these certain things. And same with Mary Ellen Bricado, who's kind of a buddy now. Like, I had never met you guys prior to some of these things, but it's so wonderful to hear someone else say something that maybe you've been like, what, I kind of was thinking that same thing. And like you find these little reasons to say, hey, you're going to be at this thing, I'm going to be here, I'd love to just meet you. Like having these opportunities to connect with each other is, again, that's really what all of this is about, right? Because when we can learn from each other, when we can share with each other, that helps patient outcomes, that helps our lives become better, which means we're going to continue to do good work out in the world. And so I guess that's the other like little thing for the students or prospective or even residents that are out there is, learn how to mobilize your own voice, and not feel like you can't. But I also very much appreciated that you said you don't have to scream it, right? You don't have to be the loud and obnoxious person in the room. Like, you don't want to be that person, right? And I appreciate that very much, Bella. So I just wanted to, because that again was something that I'm like, what, that needs to be kind of highlighted, because I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want to be the microphone hog.
Yeah.
So Bill, I want to dive into your podcast hosting, but first I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, Bako Diagnostics. We all know that early detection is the most important determination in improving patient outcomes. Bako Diagnostics remains committed to supporting you in your role as the first line of defense in diagnosing lower extremity pathologies. Bako Diagnostics, helping podiatric physicians keep America on its feet. Bella, I don't have to tell you about Bako Diagnostics. You're a speaker for them, and oh my gosh, they help everybody at every level through the profession. It's incredible.
Every level. And, I like to definitely push for, more biopsy, more testing, because, God forbid you miss something that's really important, like a melanoma or things like that. So what I've loved, I've used them my whole career, and there's lots of labs out there, but they're consistently the ones that tell you what you need to do and what you have. And I've called their pathologist before, and I'm like, I'm nervous. I don't know what this means. Can you walk me through this? And that's when you feel comfortable, right? And they support our profession. So we always want to, always support who's kind of supporting us rather than, a flash in the pan kind of company. So I love that. And I love their educational opportunities for the students and the residents.
Actually, Jeff, can I dig on that for just 1 second?
Absolutely.
Because this will probably be released in May, which is Melanoma Awareness Month. And I have a family member who was diagnosed with melanoma, and luckily they were able to but diagnose it quickly and treat it. So he is still a survivor of melanoma. But Bella, because I know that you have spoken on this at conferences as well, I'd love to get your take on, sometimes patients will come in, and we don't have to go into like, case studies or any of that stuff, but like patients will come in and they're hesitant to have you do a biopsy. You look at it, you're like, oh, this is kind of atypical. Maybe it's not like the screaming at you, like, oh my gosh, this is really scary, but you're like, this is just a little atypical. How do you approach that? Like, what is your kind of take on where that goes in that appointment?
Yeah, Joe, thanks for asking that, because I get that question once in a while. And the way I approach it is, when you're treating a patient, you can kind of gauge their anxiety or their fears. Sometimes I don't use the word biopsy. Sometimes I'll say, I just want to do a little skin test. This is what it's going to involve. Um, if someone's hesitant, I just tell them this, and I think people really resonate with this, is, you know what, I don't feel comfortable looking at this. I don't think I can sleep at night. Like, I just want to make sure this is okay. And I'll be thinking about you unless we do this. I'm not forcing you in any way, but I just know I can't rest at night. That's how much I'm like a little concerned about this. I'm like, worst case, it comes back as nothing and we're all good. Sometimes if you do a punch biopsy or even removing whatever that is, and that looks better after all in the end. So I really do have the empathy part of it. I think that every single time works. That's in my practice.
Yeah, I love that. It's one of those that, again, for this particular person in my family, it was one of his doctors. It was not on his foot, but one of his doctors was just like, I just think you really need to have that checked. Like, that's it was again, not to go into all the personal details, but it was just that statement was enough to have him follow through and have it checked. And otherwise, I mean, who knows, how far it would have spread and how far it would have gone. And he's young, and this is the thing that's so scary sometimes with melanoma, is that it affects young people. And certainly for the foot, we know, if we look at the literature, that the foot has a poor prognosis because it gets missed, because people aren't putting sunscreen on the bottom of their foot. They're not having other people looking at the bottom of their foot or in between toes. So these are the areas that it's easy to have it get missed. And when it gets missed, then it gets delayed. And so again, knowing that this will be out in the month of Melanoma Awareness Month, which is now very special in our household, I just wanted to kind of pick your brain just a little bit on that in this season of a nice Bako episode too. So thank you so much for that.
It is. And, it just, I also, with working with the fourth years and the resident, they're really nervous about doing biopsies or testing. And I don't know why. So, I don't know if they just feel like they haven't done enough. And that worries me too. That means they're not seeing it enough or thinking about it enough. So I just kind of try to stay on top of that kind of educational too, that just test it, do the biopsy, take a scraping, whatever you need to do to get a better diagnosis. It's better for charting. It's just better overall, and not to be scared of doing it. Like, yeah, it's really not that big of a open hole or anything. So
yeah.
Bella, what the story you just told was great, because talk about connecting with your patient. You're telling them that you won't be able to relax unless you know that the patient's going to be okay. It's so much of treating patients, as Joe has often said, knowledge is a commodity. It's how we relay that to the patient and help them along this path of being treated for something they're very uncomfortable with, perhaps. I just love that story. What, if you don't mind me asking, when you're teaching fourth years and they're working up patients with you, what tips do you give them for connecting with patients?
Always smile when you walk in the room, no matter what, you smile. If you can lead, and this comes from like working sales and in college and high school too. Try to lead with a compliment. It puts everyone at ease. Oh, nice to see you today. I really like your hat or something. Just you lead with a compliment. It really relaxes people, because people come in, they're nervous when they see that like white coat and you're sitting in the room waiting, and when people are asking you all these questions, people get really nervous. And even if they're coming in for a minor problem. So if you seem down to earth and you smile and you say something nice, people are very, very apt to listen to you and treat you with respect. If you come in like kind of I'm a big bad surgeon and this is like, nobody likes that, right? The other thing is explaining too much, which I see especially in the young practitioners. They're like, well, if it's this, then it'll be an amputation, and if it's this, we're going to need another MRI, and if it's this, it confuses people and it scares people. So we have to build that confidence to be like, this is our next step. And we'll take it from there. You can't overwhelm people.
Joe, I'm not sure if that's emotional intelligence or finesse, one or the other.
maybe a combination of the two,
I
right?
think so too,
Because,
right?
so like some of these key things that we'll find, Bella, as we're talking to leaders in the field, this marriage of, how do you get your point across effectively with compassion and empathy for your patients? But I really appreciate that point that you just made about not over explaining things. We live in a world now of over explaining everything. And I am probably definitely at fault for some of this as well, because it's so easy. People ask you a question and then you spend 15 minutes talking about a bunch of things that we don't even know yet, right? We're putting the cart so far ahead of the horse. And I think that that's actually a really smart, let's deal with what we know, and let's, get these tests, and then we're going to move forward from there. And so I think that that's actually really excellent advice, if nothing else, just from a time management perspective, but also not making people worry about something that they may have no reason to be worried about, because people will go home and they'll hold on to certain parts of what we say. And you took a biopsy, right? Oh, well, they said it might be a melanoma, and they stress for 5 days or whatever it takes to get maybe not 5 days, but however long it takes to get a result back, when we're just wanting to take a sample and find out what this is. And that's puts a lot more comfort that your patient knows that you care about them, you're going to get the answers for them, without going through what we do to treat melanoma, if that's what it is, because all that's going to do is cause a lot of anxiety. And so I again, I think that's a really smart point, and I love learning from other people. So I'm going to take that one back to clinic with me tomorrow and not over explain sometimes. So
yeah, and I see it a lot, and no fault to the students, right? They're in that academic mind, but they'll be like quoting articles and stuff, and
yeah.
like, I don't know what you're saying right now. So they're like, save that for the interviews.
Yeah. Oh.
Absolutely. One other thing I wanted to point out is for students and young practitioners, if they're not sure about a biopsy or when it's indicated, the pathology lab isn't like a wizard behind the curtain. You can call them, and Dr. Bako will come to the phone and talk to you or give you feedback and walk you down that path. So I think there's a lot to be said for sharing of information with the lab when you're interfacing with patients, and then just for your own interest, interfacing with the pathologists themselves.
Absolutely. Especially if you ever get a diagnosis, you just don't quite know what it means wording wise. Oh, always worth a call. And the pathologists at Bako they love to share information. They can.
Absolutely. Can I shift gears a little bit?
Sure.
So Bella, how you've been a host for ACFAS On Demand. It's a very popular podcast. I think it's in the top 2% of all podcasts in the world for listenership.
Well, I did not even know this. Okay.
Yes. So Listen Notes is kind of a way that they measure podcasts, and then they've got a tremendous score, and then they transition that into a percentage of all podcasts. I think there's like 3.5 million podcasts. So to be in the top 2% is pretty impressive. Our podcast, for example, is in the top 5%. And so you've got tremendous reach, and you've been very instrumental in that podcast. What was it like the first time you hosted a podcast? Did you have the jitters like me and Joe?
Yes, because you don't think about the editing, and people who do the editing are really the masters at everything, right? And when you're kind of thinking, I want to keep this entertaining so someone doesn't click it off, but I want to spread the good information. The first thing that went through my head is like, how do I fill up this hour? Right? You don't think you can talk that much about something, but if you're with the right people, you can just talk for hours. And then, of course, now I know the editing geniuses that make it sound much more of a conversation if there's ever a lull, or somebody pauses for too long. It just sounds really good on audio. But yeah, I was nervous of how to fill up the time and be engaging.
It's a balance, isn't it?
It is.
So what has been your favorite topic that you were the host of a podcast for ACFAS on?
So of course I did a lot of practice management ones. I think one of the ones I really liked was the financial assets one, because that's not my field. I got to talk with someone who's considered one of the experts in the country You know, talk about what we should do as physicians with our money, our retirement, future planning, which is not stuff we know. And it's always fun to banter with like my committee members and other people, but someone who doesn't think the way we think and isn't afraid to say it, I think that was one of the best ones I did. I learned a lot. I know there was a lot of questions afterwards, and you know, I thought that could have been a 2-part, 3-part series. There's just so much out there, and all of us are clueless. The second we start making income, we're like, what now? What, right? Especially if you're an independent physician and you're like, do I set up my own IRA? Those kind of things.
And then that totally makes sense. So do you call your guests to bring them on, or how do you do that?
So yeah, so for the college, we always want, like, anyone has knowledge on something that is not our committee, like the 5 of us or the 8 of us. So we're always asking each other, who knows someone that's really excellent at XYZ, or who has a really good story to share about a complication or whatever. So we want other people. We want to highlight other members, other people, because we don't know it all. And we get, you know, as you know, you get sick of hearing the same 2 people speak, right? So not you guys are the best, but you get sick of, like, you want something new and fresh. So, you know, if you guys ever want to come on, like, let us know, that kind of thing. And we will get you on whatever you'd like to speak about.
Oh, that's fun. You know, it's interesting because when we start bringing in guests, you know, it reminds you of the need to stay in your own lane, right? And oftentimes when we have students or residents and they'll call me and they'll say, hey, can I send over this contract for you to read? You know, I'm not an attorney. And just, you know, I think it's important that podiatrists, for example, whether it's financial or accounting or legal, you don't want the attorney doing foot surgery on you. You don't want to be reviewing contracts and making all the hard decisions. So bringing in experts is key, I think.
Yeah. And so we're always looking for that. And I think people are really like that. They just hear something they don't know or don't really have the time to read all the things on the internet about.
And financial literacy is something that isn't necessarily commonplace. It's not really talked about publicly. People don't talk about money and how to manage it. So to your point, Bella, we spend so much time in debt as students going through school. And then all of a sudden there's this dramatic shift where now that's not the case anymore. And there are a couple different avenues you can take with that. And some of the most successful people figure out that financial literacy early. And maybe it's having a trusted advisor, maybe it's their own research, maybe it's family members, you know, whatever. But having those kinds of experts on, I think you're absolutely right, is incredibly valuable because it's stuff that I think a broad audience can really appreciate.
Yeah. And, you know, to your point, Joe, like we said, life changes. So we really need that kind of knowledge more frequently. And of course, that's not taught to us. So if we can hear more in an approachable way, that's great.
That makes sense. Joe, should we do some rapid fire questions?
Oh, we definitely should. Yeah.
All right. All right. You ready, Bella? So you live in Chicagoland, so you have a long winter. When you want to get away, jump on an airplane for some warm weather, where do you head?
Miami. It's always Miami.
I love it.
And I don't need a passport.
There you go, right? It's like living in the Caribbean.
Yes.
Good
Oh, I love that. All right. So
you didn't have to think about it. You just like,
yeah,
boom,
I know she was ready for that one. Favorite piece of art?
So when I finished my art history, I was a huge Baroque person. So I love like Northern and Southern Baroque. So anything Caravaggio is like, I consider him my first boyfriend. Like, I just love Caravaggio.
It. Yeah. Jeff and I were talking about Caravaggio on the plane. He was in my top 5 for sure. Yeah. The Conversion of St. Paul. Oh yeah. Outstanding.
Meant to be.
Right? Right? I love it.
Yes.
We're talking about the Pietà, all kinds of fun stuff.
So good. So dramatic. That's why I love it.
It is. So
that contrast, that light and dark. Sorry. I'm getting
Go
too
for
excited
it.
about.
Favorite food, Bella? If you go out for dinner, what do you go for?
Chinese. I love Chinese. I just can't eat like a street Chinese food. I'm good. Like, people are like, oh, you look fancy. I'm like, nope. Just give me some Chinese food. I'm good.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, Chinese sounds good. That might be on our dinner menu for tonight.
Spicier the better. We're good.
All right. I'm going to do a question we haven't done yet, Jeff, but you and I were talking about it. Top 3 books, or you could just go with one, but sometimes it's hard to pick just one. So 1 or 2 or maybe 3 max.
I think I have to put on The Alchemist. That's really great. I love this
So
Japanese
good.
book called Revenge. It's by a Japanese author. I can't pronounce it correctly. It's like Okinawa or Kanazawa. Such a good book. And I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan. So
Okay.
any of those would be good for me. I liked Curtain, the final one, even though it was sad, but I've read like those 100 times and I'll read them again. I can't pick a favorite on that one.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is great. So what do you do when you're not involved in podiatric medicine? What do you do to relax? What do you do to exercise? Things like that.
So I try to work out every day. I'm really in a bar and yoga, and then because I'm getting older, I'm doing some strength training and weight lifting in a class and with a trainer. I love walking. I'm in the city, thank goodness, so it's really easy. And I love my social life. I have a 15-year-old. I love hanging out with her because she's just so cool. And I love seeing my friends and my family, just having good meals and conversation. I like to keep it easy. Try not to stress.
So
Like
does
That's a great one.
today I'll be watching the final game of I don't know if you guys follow basketball,
totally.
but yeah, I have a group of friends just kind of gonna watch it somewhere and have a good time, even though we're all working tomorrow.
Does your 15-year-old help you with social media at all?
She's so whip fast that I can't actually keep up. She helps me and she just fixes it. And then she's like, yeah. And what I realized with her is her whole generation attention span is so short. So it's actually helped me cut down on like verbiage and length of a film, because they literally, I don't know, they're just so fast with it. It's amazing. Which is good too. I think they're great editors, that age group.
A funny story, a couple of years ago when we started this podcast, I thought there's got to be a way to consolidate all of our social media. And my son looks at me and he says, why don't you just build out a link tree? I'm like, what's a link tree? So they're awesome. The kids are unbelievable.
How they did it in 5 minutes for you.
They did. They did.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
So now he's in law school, and every time he gives me advice, he expects some like financial return or something.
Of course. I mean,
Right.
He's going to send you an invoice, Jeff.
Yeah.
I know. That's what I say. Send me a bill.
They're training him right there.
There you go. Watch out, Joe. It's coming.
Oh, I know. I know.
Oh my gosh. Is your child in law school also, or?
No, I have a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old. So
Yeah, it's coming.
we're in that phase. I'm like, can we just freeze this time in life? And oh, they're so fun. They're so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe, any last questions for Bella? I mean, we could talk forever, obviously.
This is
Oh
so
yeah,
fun.
I could sit here and talk her ear off all day long, but we're coming close to our time, and I so appreciate you coming on and sharing all your different insights with our audience, Bella, and for all the work that you do for the profession as a whole, your residents, the students, and the profession through your various speaking engagements and podcasts. Again, just thank you so much for being real. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It was an honor to come on this. I've been following you guys for a long time, and it's always it's such a pleasant thing to listen to, and it's so informative. So I really like it.
Thank you, Bella. Well, we're going to send you a Dean's Chat mug for your caffeine or non-caffeine of choice. Maybe we'll send you 2 so you can have one on both sides of the hall, the medical spa and the office.
I'd love that. It'll be right in the front.
All right. Sounds good. And again, I echo Joe's sentiments. Thank you for all you do for our profession. And we look forward to having you back on Dean's Chat down the road.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
You too. Well, to all of our listeners out there, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please give us a 5-star rating and leave a couple comments if you want. And naturally, if you're on YouTube, please become a subscriber. And until next week, everybody, cheers.